All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. We are so excited to have you here today for our webinar titled The Mindful Hour, The Power of Play Therapy in Childhood Cancer. My name is Eunice, clinical psychologist at National Cancer Society of Malaysia, and I'll be your host for today. So whether you are tuning with us live on Facebook or YouTube, we truly appreciate your time and participation in joining us for tonight's webinar. All right, and we have here with us our guest speaker, Jacinta. She is an associate play therapist at National Cancer Society of Malaysia, and she will be walking us through how play therapy is so useful in childhood cancer, helping children to cope and heal, and also find joy amidst the challenges that they are going through. So before we dive in, there are just a few housekeeping rules that I'm going to walk you through. This webinar will last approximately 45 minutes to 60 minutes. So whenever you have questions, feel free to use the chat box and we can then answer the questions at the end of the webinar today where there is a dedicated Q&A segment for this. All right, so without further ado, I would like to welcome Jacinta right here to introduce herself. Let's all welcome Jacinta.
Hi everyone, my name is Jacinta and I'm an accredited play therapist registered with Play Therapy UK.
All right, thank you, Jacinta. So, yeah, before we start, here are some contents that we are covering for today. The first one would be why play therapy? Why are we specifically talking about play therapy today? And I think many of you here would also wonder what goes on inside a play therapy session, right? So then Jacinta here will be answering the question for us about what can we expect inside a play therapy session, what is it actually about and what is it not, because now I would understand that all of us would have our own take or our own opinion about what play therapy is, correct? And finally, activities to try at home, because some parents who are tuning in with us right now, I would understand that everyone here is interested to know how can we extend the effects that we gather right here in a therapeutic session, so that children can be more supported whenever they are out of therapy as well when they are at home. So this is to target that part. All right. Without further ado, before we begin, here is something to just work up our brain a little bit. It's for me as well. What is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear play therapy? So, what are your opinions or what are your thoughts when we prompt you about play therapy? So let's take a moment to think about it. Maybe you would have some idea, maybe you have some opinion about it. Yep. And let's see if it matches what we will discover by the end of today. All right. So yeah, the first content that we are covering today, why play therapy? Why are we specifically talking about play therapy? So what is play therapy actually about? I'm actually curious about this as well. So over to you, Jacinta.
Okay, so play therapy is revolves around play, right? So play is a primary and essential activity of childhood. It has numerous developmental benefits such as to their physical, to their emotions, socially and cognitively. It is the way children learn and explore their environment. Play therapy uses creative media to help children express themselves, process emotion, and to develop coping skills when they struggle to verbalize their thoughts and feelings. So in play therapy, we follow 8 X-lines principles. So what are these principles? It's basically how we as therapists need to approach the client in the playroom, and which is very different compared to how other adults, such as teachers or parents, that work or is in the child's life most of the time. So as the therapist, we are warm and friendly to the child. We accept them no matter how they are, so it doesn't matter what kind of environment or challenging behavior that they come from or what kind of socio-economical background they are from. We accept them however they are. We give them the permission to express themselves, and we offer them the insights that when we see them processing in the playroom, we respect that it is their choice to make the decision, that they have the ability to solve their own problems, and it is a child-led therapy. We do not hurry the therapy, and there are only limited limitations necessary to anchor therapy to the world of reality to make the child be aware of their responsibility in that relationship. So they have the freedom to express themselves verbally, physically, and emotionally. And that includes if they need to swear in the playroom, it's okay for them to do so. There may be underlying things that is going on for them, so it's okay for them to be that way. And going back to being warm and friendly in that relationship, it's very important for us to be that way because it's a way for us to build rapport and trust with the client. So when a person has the freedom to be themselves however they are, we believe that we can really truly see what is going on inside of them. So in play therapy, playing together in the therapy room with a full toolkit of play and arts material creates the facilitative environment for the reflective discovery of therapeutic change. The therapeutic relationship means that crucially the child is not alone with their experience. This means that the child can feel supported and understood, safe and able to approach deep and strong feelings. So how does that relevant to childhood cancer children or children who is has become a survivor of childhood cancer. It aids in their physical and emotional welfare. It explores matters of children in hospital experience and mitigates the intensity of emotions that can come up. Because going through childhood cancer is very much overwhelming. There's a lot of big emotions that need to be processed. Emotions such as confusion, frustration, anger, pain, sadness. All of these are very big emotions for a child to go through. Even for adults, it's so overwhelming. What more for a child? So, play therapy also helps them deal with the situation to help them feel safer and easier to cope with the procedures and treatments.
All right, so from what Jacinta mentioned just now, play therapy uses the natural language of children, which is play, to help them heal in this process. And like Jacinta said just now, which is something very insightful, whereby there are a lot of big emotions involved when it comes to childhood cancer, correct? And carrying this emotional weight, the children who are carrying this emotional weight, I would understand that play therapy is a form of facilitator or a channel to help them express these emotions and to help them gain more insights to themselves as well. So, Jacinta, I'm also wondering when it comes to childhood cancer, right? One of the most significant emotions that children can feel is a loss of control over their daily circumstances. So, that can really induce a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety in them. So, how does play therapy comes in this context specifically?
So, when children are able to attend play therapy, when they play, it releases oxytocin, so it's sort of like a form of stress relief. So when they can have that relief happening inside of them, indirectly or directly it will impact their overall emotional health, which helps them to not feel too much anxiety, to not feel too overwhelmed. And more is that when children are able to express themselves, they become less overwhelming and less upsetting and less scary.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And oxytocin, from what we understand, also is also called the trust and bonding hormone, whereby whenever play is involved, then there is a higher level of oxytocin being released, and then there is easier connection to be established, right? Even with the children and also the people around them, because once again, oxytocin is called the trust and bonding hormone. So then it would really help facilitate a lot of connections surrounding them, and that also directly ties into their healing process. Am I right, Jacinta?
Yes, correct. Because
Mm.
oxytocin also is sort of like an antidepressant. It's one of the hormones that's really important to help us feel relaxed, and it's biochemical of play. It's one of it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm,
something that
mm-hmm.
is released for a child when they play.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, I like that we are also bringing biological elements into this discussion as well. Okay, all right. So now let's move on to the next segment. So now that Jacinta have already walked us through about what play therapy is and why does it matter in childhood cancer, right? Now we may be wondering what actually goes on inside a play therapy session. So what can we actually expect from it, right? So maybe Jacinta, could you answer the first question for us? What can we expect in a play therapy session?
What can you expect in the play therapy session? I think the direct impact that you can see from the child is probably they are much more, they can follow instructions better, they can cope with the procedures better, they might have increased their patience much more. Yeah, not to get an outburst or meltdown as frequent whenever they go through therapy or whatever procedure that's not comfortable for them. But inside the playroom, uh, so in play therapy we offer a range of toolkits. So these toolkits are, for example, sand tray with figurines, puppets, musical instruments, arts and crafts. So these toolkits, just some of it, brings out certain aspect of the child. So for example, sand tray, they bring out the emotional part of the child. Puppets, they bring out the caring for themselves, arts and craft for their creativity. So although these things do bring out a certain aspect, but it's not only limited to those. It also depends on the child's interest and what attracts them. So they use these toys to express themselves. And through that, I can give you an example, with something that can happen inside the playroom, whereby a child could take two figurines or two animals and tape them over and over again. In other settings, typically an adult would tell the child, "Don't do this. What are you doing? It's not the right way to play. The toy you're using will get ruined, or you're wasting the tape." So in play therapy, we recognize the importance for the child to do so. It is a process. Perhaps it can be a theme of wanting to stay together, not to be separated. So when we see something like that happen, we develop our own theory and then we test it to understand better the process or the experience that the child is actually showing. So if we intervene like how in other settings would intervene, it immediately sends a message to the child that they should not be doing this way. It puts a stop to them expressing themselves or whatever that they're figuring out. For example, in that case, that the thing should be separated, and it can be a scenario of fear or losing someone. So allowing freedom to process can bring clarity to thoughts and feelings or experience that the child is going through. Then it becomes the child's choice to try what works for them and go from there. So it's a place where they freely can make mistake, and it's not a place for me to correct them or tell them that it's wrong or tell them that you should do this way, because every person goes through their life or their experience based on the conditions that they are in. I'm no better, or I'm not the best person to tell them what is wrong or right, because it is their life. They know best, and I'm just there to support and help them see whatever it is that they need to see. Yeah, to process and reflect internally, to gain that self-awareness for themselves. Yeah. So I
Mm.
think the next is how can I support or complement these sessions, right? So for parents, think spending time with your child, having that connection with your child can benefit both of you. Yeah, especially when you're going through something so big as having cancer, it can be overwhelming and a lot of things can be overlooked. But the the best thing is to just go back to your relationship with your child, because you're the only one that is best to be there to support your child with your unconditional love that you have for your child. So playing together, spending some time, having that quality time can improve and help heal the child actually as well, because you're the best person there for them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right. I like that you pointed out about the unconditional love that is a common key factor in terms of how we can support or complement these sessions as well, right? So, would this mean that parents shouldn't really impose what they think is the right approach on their child, but instead having full belief in their child that they have the ability to facilitate their own healing journey? Would that be it?
Yes. And at the same time, I think when you enter into children's play, Virginia Exline says that you will find where the child's mind, hearts, and soul meets. So when you actually go into play with your child, you get to know and you get to know them a little bit more. You know their skill and you know their capability. And when you are there to facilitate and just allow them to be themselves, you're actually nurturing the child. You also impart that belief that you have on them, that confidence that you want them to build, that self-esteem, and knowing that you are the safe space for them as well. Yeah.
All right, all right. Okay. And I think we did not talk about this, but for example, when you carry out a play therapy session, right? How long would it approximately last? For example, one session.
Typically, it will last between 30 to 45 minutes. It really
Mm-hmm.
depends on the child's age as well, because perhaps some cannot hold the long attention, but typically it maximum is 45 minutes. But there will be some cases where the child don't want to leave, don't want to stop, but too much of something is also not too good, because even the sessions that they come in is not always fun. It's very overwhelming as well because of the things that they're processing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, all right. So I'm wondering, when it comes to your experience, right, conducting play therapy sessions with children, has there been any sort of resistance that you have encountered with these children? Because you mentioned that sometimes play therapy may not be always an entirely pleasant session for them as well, and sometimes there can be a bit of a hard time that they are going through.
Okay, so a bit of resistance. Typically, for older children, they might feel that the toys are too childish. So actually, there are also games, and it's okay as well if they want to just talk to me. That's okay, but that only that kind of resistance. But typically, children when they come into play therapy, they really enjoy it. They don't want to leave. In fact, they want more, in my
Hmm.
experience, but I'm sure there are other therapists might have experienced something a little bit more. I'm just fortunate that most of my clients that come to me, they enjoy and they don't want to go.
Okay, all right, good to hear. So, when it comes to children who refuse to leave, right, because they are so engaged, they are so engrossed with the session that you are conducting, how do you then manage it?
Okay, so with this, I would establish clear boundaries from the beginning. I would tell them that they have 45 minutes, and I will repeatedly tell them until they really understand that, okay, they have 45 minutes. And then I will help them to give them a countdown. So they have 10 minutes, and then 5 minutes, and then 1 minute, and then the seconds, that 10 seconds left. But if that fails, then I would have a timer to help them. But if they really don't want, then I need to step out from the playroom. Naturally, they will follow me out.
Mm. All right, all right. So this again ties into the second question that we are exploring, which is what methods or techniques are being used, whereby methods or techniques does not only involve the toolkits, but also the principles that Sinta you mentioned just now, right? The principles that
Yes,
a therapist carry into the session. Also includes setting boundary from the beginning, and it can also include having this non-interfering approach when you conduct the session with the children. And
yeah,
that is also involved in the methods or techniques that are being used in the play therapy session.
yes.
All right. Okay. All right. So I think this is pretty in depth. We cover anything that you want to add on, to address to the audience when it comes to what goes on inside the play therapy session. Anything else?
Mm, not that I can think of, but
Mm-hmm.
typically when a parent goes through this journey with their child, they would have a lot of questions, and I'm always there to answer them whenever it comes up. Yeah.
All
So far, I
right.
don't have anything.
All right.
It's more sort of something that you need to go through. Then only the questions would come up. Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right. Okay, so now that we have already understood what goes on in a play therapy session and what can we expect, we tend to have certain assumptions in mind about play therapy. So play therapy is this, and play therapy is also not about this, right? So Sinta here will help us address certain common misconceptions about play therapy, and some here may be familiar to you, some may not be familiar. So let's explore this together. So over to you, Sinta.
Okay, so first one here, play therapy is only for younger children. Well, typically play therapy is for children aged 3.5 to 12 years, but it is not limited to only this age range. But because it uses creative media, So, say for example, an older child or an adult were to come in, typically they would talk first, because that's what adults usually would do. They would talk first, then only we use the tools to help them process deeper using the toys or the arts and craft, or whichever that attracts them the most. And play therapy is just play. Okay, so play therapy is not just play, it's really difficult work, overwhelming work that the child is going through, big emotions that is so serious and heartbreaking that is happening for them inside the program. It can be tiring. Hence, that's why play therapy typically happens once a week. Because if it happens every day, it doesn't leave much time for the child to process whatever that's been going on within them. And it can be mentally and emotionally draining as well. So take for example, if you as an adult every day you talk to someone about your problem, it's tiring, right? You need a break from it. It's too much of process to dig down into something that's not comfortable. So taking a break is also a part of healing as well. Okay, children have to talk in order for it to be effective. Oh no, because communication or spoken words are only 7% that we use, and 38% is voice and tone, and 55% is our body language. So we don't actually need talking only. So that's why play therapy works. It doesn't need the child to talk. They can just use the toys to express themselves. And it is no different than playing at home. It is different because it has therapeutic objective with excellence principles, the way that we approach that therapeutic relationship, that therapeutic environment as well. And therapy, play therapy is also private and confidential. So it's not something that, say for example, the teacher or the nurses or the parents want to peek into the session. Is That's not possible. Yeah, that's not possible. So we can discuss the progress of the child, but not the process.
Mm-hmm. All
And it's
right,
not a
all right.
teaching session. Sorry.
All right. So it's not a teaching session. That means you strive to be non-directive or not as structured, is it, when you conduct the play therapy session?
Play therapy is mainly non-directive, but we can be directive in a non-directive manner. So that's a bit complicated for us to explain this, but mainly we are non-directive. It's not a teaching session, so we don't go in with a lesson plan prepared or a specific toys or tools that I have in mind for the child to explore. So it's completely child-led therapy as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right, all right. And drawing back a little bit to the first one, whereby play therapy is only for younger children, right? So I'm imagining if, let's say, an older child were to come in, then what sort of scenario would usually come into play? Like, what, in your experience, what would they usually draw on or lean towards when it comes to the toolkits that you are bringing into your session?
Okay. So typically for girls, they might want to draw, painting, and then perhaps games. And for boys, they might get into games more, or ball, like playing a ball indoor. That's what they might get drawn into. Not so much of the centre with figurine or puppets, but they can choose to use the other tools to express themselves. It also depends which stage or which development that they are into at that time. So it really, it's not limited that they cannot play with this or they cannot play with that. It's really up to them whether or not it's something that they need to do.
Mm-hmm. All right, all right. So again, flexibility comes into play right here again.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Are there some sessions as well that you do prompt the children to actually talk in the play therapy session? I'm wondering.
uh, I don't prompt them to talk, but because I'm reflecting the actions that they're doing, if they are not verbalizing whatever or they're not talking to me, sometimes, most of the time, I will get response, especially when that trust has been built. They become more relaxed, they become more trusting towards me. They would respond back to me. They can respond back to me either verbally or just by gesturing. That's also a form of communication. So it's not a priority for me to hear them talk. But yes, typically the older kids, they would talk more.
I see, I see. All right. So play itself, even though it's using gestures and it's using what they feel like they need at that moment, that is what is being used as a catalyst to facilitate that rapport and that further increase insight and self-awareness, and that would usually draw on to more initiative to communicate, is it?
Yes,
All
you're
right,
right.
all right, all right. I see. Okay, all right. The four misconceptions here. Which one do you hear the most as a play therapist?
Play therapy is just play. Yeah,
Play
it's not
is
just
just play.
play. Yeah. At first,
Okay.
when I first started this, yeah, I thought play therapy is a tool for me to teach children how to play. Nothing about mental or emotional health came into my mind in regards to play therapy. Yeah, I had
Mm-hmm.
that my own misconception about what is play therapy as well.
All right, all right. And how did you develop greater insight about this? Like play therapy isn't just about play.
When I first entered my first day of the course, yeah,
All right, okay. And as you go along more sessions, and then you realize that it's not just that, is it?
yeah, it's completely opposite of what I expected. Yeah,
All right, okay, okay. So, I would understand that now you tend to feel better and more confident about how you are conducting your sessions, and also in terms of answering these common misconceptions as well.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
All right, all right. Okay, all right. So we are moving on to the next segment. So we have already explored the most common misconception, what can we expect in play therapy itself, what goes on in the play therapy session. So what if now we point out that you could use play at home to support your child's emotional needs? So I think this segment would be particularly interesting or helpful for parents who are tuning in with us today, because this is usually the questions that will be posed or you are curious about. How can you further support your child? How can we create a ripple effect aside from what is being conducted in the play therapy session? So let's explore this a little bit. So some activities that we can try at home when it comes to play. Sinta, do you have any ideas or inputs or any suggestions for this?
I think one of the most common toys that you could have with your child at home are Legos or maybe arts and craft, right? So it doesn't matter what kind of toy that you're using with your child, what kind of toy that they're choosing. Always remain curious and nurturing to your child. So be inviting, open, and willing, and get down to their level. Meet them at their level. So if you're offering toys to them or you're bringing them to play, choose a toy that is developmentally appropriate, age appropriate for them. Yeah, and let them lead the way, lead the play. Don't make it about you. So I understand that sometimes as adults we know better, right? We know how to build the Lego better, we know how to draw or make the arts and craft better, but it's important for the child to be able to create and be creative on their own. So when you're playing, for example, Lego with them, try to anticipate what is the next piece that the child wants. So sit with them and just see what kind of wonders there or what kind of creative thing that they can come up in, yeah, building the Lego. It's not a competition between you and your child, but it's a time and space for you to be there for your child and to remain curious to their capability. And when it comes to arts and craft or just painting, it's okay to just sit by their side and just copy what they're drawing. They can appreciate you because it will show them that they are leading the way, that you trust them. And when it comes to arts and craft, like if they are going into messy play like the glue, prepare yourself. Yeah, if you're not comfortable with the messy play, glue or glitters, all this kind of thing, or if you feel that they're wasting the tape or paper, prepare yourself, like be organized. Don't offer too much, or prepare in a moderate amount so that you actually teach them to use it wisely as well, and it doesn't give you difficulty or uncomfortable feeling that your child is making a mess of things as well. Yeah, so those are the common kind of activities that you can do at home. But in other kind of toys that they're playing, just be curious and be with them. It's not about who can do the best.
All right, I see, I see. Have you had experience when it comes to conducting your session itself, and you tend to see a need for the child to seek validation when it comes to what they are doing in their play? Because I would understand that maybe if they are in an environment where they are constantly being told what to do or what to fix and where to fix, then they would have a tendency to seek reassurance or validation from you when you play the toy together with them, right?
Correct, correct. So sometimes I would see children wanting to show me, oh, is it nice my picture, or I built very good, right, my Lego. But the way that I will respond to them is say, what do you think, like how do you feel about your picture? So
Mm,
it goes back to telling them, to instill in them to believe in themselves, that whatever that they think about their picture is what matters. It doesn't matter what I think about it. And I would mention about the effort. Oh, I see that you're trying your best. You're wow, you're very good at mixing the colors. So it's not about the product, or I will not praise them, oh, very nice picture, good work, keep up the good job, or something like that, but more so emphasizing the effort that they make, noticing the difference that they have made previously compared to now. So that takes a lot of consistency in being with them, noticing things that they've not done before, noticing the patterns that they've changed over time. Yeah.
mm-hmm. All right, all right. I like that you pointed out how it is about noticing the process and acknowledging the process rather than the end result or the product that comes up of the play itself, right? And I think this is also a key takeaway in this segment itself, whereby it's something to point out to every one of us right here who are learning about play therapy, or even parents who are tuning in with us today also, in spending quality time with the children when it comes to play. It's not really directing or knowing how certain things should end up in play, but rather appreciating the process and having trust in the process as the child goes along. All right. Okay. So you mentioned arts and crafts and also Lego. Any other activities that are quite doable at home when it comes to play between a parent and a child?
I think a lot of children like to play board games, you know.
Mm, mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
that it's a bit risky as well, because certain age they cannot handle losing. Yeah, it's a part of their development, it's something normal, but it's important also to show good sportsmanship, so you can practice that, and it can be fun for two of you. So so when I mention about games, I'm talking about physical tangible games. It's not some, not video games, okay, not digital games. It's very different. Yeah. And because we know that screen time is not good for children, screen time is very different than like proper physical play, like play that you can really touch something. Because when your brain matures at the age of 25, and screen time cannot grow your brain like playing does. So the more you play, your brain grows. So think of your brain like a computer. You have the processing part, you have the memory part, and so much more. But the thing that makes a good computer is the wiring, the connection. It's the same with our brain, it's the same with children's brain. The more you play, the more neural pathways, or the more connections are made. So these connections uh, access to different parts of your brain, and then you would use it when you are solving math problems in the future, when you're climbing uh, a mountain or something, the way you coordinate your hands and your feet, and so many other things. So these connections is really important. It's only through play that it can grow properly and can benefit the child most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Sinta, talking about screen time, right? Many parents do struggle in terms of limiting screen time for their children when it comes to this day and age where technology is so widespread in everything that we do, right? So, while we know that tangible play is something that is going to be very helpful in terms of the brain wiring and helping the brain growth and development. What are some tips that you would like to suggest to parents who are tuning in right here about how we can limit screen time for our children?
Okay, so if the child is addicted to screen time, it's as if the child is addicted to drugs. So taking it away immediately would not be helpful. Yeah, so taking or cutting it down slowly is best, and you have to be consistent with it. You need to set boundaries on how long they can use the have a screen time, and to help them to stop, you need to have to give them a countdown to help them transition better into stopping. And if you do remove your screen time, you have to replace it with something else. So in the beginning, you need to spend more time with them, help them go through that difficult phase of not having a screen time, and you have to be there to help them lah most of the time. Then only they can manage themselves when it has become something that's consistent over time. If they feel that they are feeling bored, or they tell you that they are bored, let them be bored. It's a good time for them to be bored. When you're bored, you do a lot of reflection. That's how it is for us when we are growing up. When you don't have anything to do, we have a lot of conversations going on in our mind, thinking, oh, what should I do tomorrow? Oh, what happened just now? Oh, what do I want to be in the future? So all this reflection is a part of their well-being, their growth, their everything. So let them be bored. Don't try to fill up their time because you're busy, because you can't be there for them, but try to build that from the beginning as much as you can.
All right. So consistency and a gradual step process is something that is very important when it comes to limiting screen time.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, all right. So I think we have discussed this for quite some time now. So now I think we are somewhat finished covering all four topics for today, and I would assume that everyone here, your brain must be overloaded with information, but I really hope not. I hope that we provided you a well balance between informational knowledge that you can gain from Sinta right here today, and also some practical tips that you feel that it is very useful and applicable with your child at home and supporting your child through their cancer journey. All right. So you may have some questions or you may not have. That's all right. So before we jump into the Q&A segment, here is just a QR code for mental health screening for whoever right here, adults, adolescents, anyone right here tuning in, that you just want to have a brief understanding on how you are doing currently emotionally and psychologically. And if ever you feel like you need help, or you just feel like you want someone to help you in terms of self development, feel free to scan the QR code right here. We will just need you to provide some brief information about yourself, tell us a little bit of yourself, and then we will be connecting with you for our services or to even better support you. All right. So here is the QR code for anyone who is interested, and I will slowly move on to the next slide. All right, so here is another QR code. This is about our NCSM mental health community. So by scanning this QR code, you will be joining a community where we will be providing first-hand updates on mental health events and programs, including self-care tips from our professionals over here. And you can also connect with other like-minded people who are in that community as well. So it can be like a support system that you never knew you need, right? So this is the QR code for that. Feel free to scan, take a picture. All right. And then here are our social media platforms just for your knowledge. So feel free to stalk us if you would like to. Feel free to go on these social media platforms. And finally, we are at our Q&A segment. So maybe we have some questions right up. I'm not sure. I will be waiting for it to pop up if there are any. All right. Okay, so we have a question from Sky Lane Creative. What role does the therapist's relationship with the child play in the success of play therapy? How do you build trust with a child?
Okay. So my role as the therapist to build that relationship with the child is when I allow them to freely express themselves, it slowly builds that trust uh, with the child. I mean, when they have the freedom to explore, the freedom to say, or the freedom to do whatever that they need, in return they would have that feeling, that trust with me. So at the same time, when I think just now Eunice mentioned about oxytocin being the bond. Sorry, what you mentioned just now,
Trust
oxytocin,
and bonding hormone.
trust and bonding hormone that is released during play with the child. So that's how we build the trusting relationship with the child.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Sinta. I hope that answers your question, Sky Lane Creative. So, do we have any other questions? Yeah, by Khalid. What are some signs that a child is benefiting from play therapy and how do you measure progress?
So the signs that the child is benefiting from play therapy, it really depends on the initial assessment, the kind of concerns that you come into the play therapy. So say for example, the child may have anger issue or behavioral issue. So that could indicate that maybe they have emotion problem with emotionally regulating themselves. So coming to play therapy would help them in regulating their emotion. And we measure the progress with this assessment tool called strength and difficulty questionnaire. So when you first come into the play therapy, we do an assessment. So you would fill up that form, and then later on during our review meeting or even after we end our therapy meeting, we would use that same form to measure. So it would show us a score that can show whether or not it has gone down or it has gone up.
All right.
Other,
Thank
other
you.
than using the SDQ, it also goes back to the interview that we have with the parent on whether or not the child may be experiencing more anger issues or not. So you would see that's how we can measure as well the progress.
All right. So it's both using what is being collected, black and white, and also your observation and subjective data that you are receiving, is it?
Yeah, from the outside,
Mm-hmm.
from the parents' experience on the outside, as well
Mm-hmm.
as the progress that I see when the child is doing inside. So it's
Mm.
both quantitative and qualitative kind of assessment.
All right. All right. Okay. I hope that answer your question, colleague. From Adriana Camelia Mansour, how to stop the habits of trying to correct or fix what the child did with their Lego.
I guess this goes back to why do you want to correct or fix your child's Lego? It's their it's their time to play, and it's more of a reflection of why do you have the need to want to correct and fix what your child is doing instead of, yeah.
Right, so it again goes back to parents should also maybe reflect on themselves a little bit when they think about why they feel the need to correct or fix the Lego, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right, all right. Okay, okay. All right. So I think that is the last of our questions. So before we wrap up, or even before I wrap this webinar, do you have any last suggestions or last words that you feel like you want to let the audience over here know, or you want to address to the audience?
When it comes to play, your child is the expert in play. Just remind yourself in that it's not so much about fixing or playing the right way. There is playing to experience, playing to explore. It's a time and space for them to learn. It's not a time and space for them to get the result. Yeah, if that makes sense to you. Yeah.
All right, okay, short and sweet yet impactful. All right, okay. So, yeah, so everyone who is tuning in right here, whether you're a parent, a caregiver, or a healthcare professional, understanding the role of play therapy in childhood cancer can make a profound difference. So, as we know again, in the world of a child, healing isn't about medicine, it's also about connection, it's also about creativity, and it's also about the simple yet powerful act of play. All right, so with that, I will wrap up the webinar right here. So have a good night, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you in our next mental health webinar. All right, thank you, Jacinta, for being such a wonderful guest speaker for today as well.
Thank you. Good
All
night,
right, thank
everyone.
you.